The Faculty of Law was established in 1962 as one of the foundation teaching units of the University of Lagos. Teaching in the faculty began in October 1962 with an academic staff of 5 persons, 2 Nigerians and 3 Englishmen, and 26 pioneer full-time students registered for a 3-year Bachelor of Laws LLB degree program. A 5-year part-time LLB degree program was introduced in January 1963 with 30 students, but the program was terminated in 2006. The faculty considers its role as that of providing sound university legal education in line with the UNESCO Advisory Commission's report, which proposed the establishment of the University of Lagos. Since its inception, the faculty has been committed to teaching law in the light of social, political, and economic context, nationally and internationally. The faculty was divided into 4 departments on 1st October 1977. They are Department of Commercial and Industrial Law, Department of Jurisprudence and International Law, Department of Private and Property Law, and Department of Public Law. The graduates of the faculty have over the years dominated various legal fields within Nigeria and beyond. To date, it has produced Supreme Court justices and more than 50 senior advocates of Nigeria.
Since the senior advocate rank was introduced in Nigeria, we have had over 75, of our alumni make that rank. And I think that with some of the latest elevations, we probably have crossed the bar into 80 and maybe a little bit above 80 by now.
There are 4 student law chambers, namely Taslim Elias Chambers, Kayode Esho Chambers, Oputa Chambers, and Gani Fawayimi Chambers. Other student co-curricular associations, which enable students deepen their practical knowledge of legal fields and hone their law skills, include the Mooting Society, established to handle all the various mooting competitions involving the faculty, the Maritime Forum, the Tax Club, the Oil and Gas Club, and the ADR Society. Some innovations were introduced in the nurturing of student-staff relations through an event tagged Bridge Time, which allows students to interact freely with academic faculty and discuss academic matters such as student academic performance and career prospects. Alumni of the faculty who have achieved notable success sometimes participate in this forum. The Deans of Faculty of Law, University of Lagos from 1962 to 2022, Professor L.C.B. Gower, Professor Taslim Elias, Professor Alfred Kasumu, Professor Michael Jegede, Professor Clifford Olawoye, Professor Michael Ajomo, Professor Anthony Adeogun, Professor Jelili Omotola, Professor Akintunde Obilade, Professor Isaac Agbede, Professor Emmanuel Akonki, Professor Adedokun Adeyemi, Professor Chioma Agomo, Professor Oyewo Oyelowo, SAN, Professor Imran Oluwole Smith, Professor Akin Ibidapo Obe, Professor Ayodele Asenwa, and Professor Ige Omotaya Bolodeogu, current Dean of Law. The story starts in 1962 with Professor L.C.B. Gower, a foremost authority on company law, as a pioneer dean.
As a matter of fact, the man who interviewed me for admission at the London School of Economics, University of London, Professor Gower, told me that he was going to be the first dean of the Faculty of Law, University of Lagos.
His accomplishments and the stamp of excellence he left on the faculty were taken further by another giant, a man of many parts, Taslim Elias. Elias took over the mantle of leadership at a very turbulent time in the history of the faculty and the university. The inspirational leadership gap created by the unfortunate events of 1965 could only have been filled by no other person than a man of the caliber of Taslim Elias, who assumed the deanship of the faculty in 1966 at a most critical period. He had the singular honor of occupying the post of Attorney General of the Federation, as well as that of the Dean of the Faculty. He promoted the culture of quality academic research and also initiated staff development programs, among other schemes. Alfred Kasumu succeeded Elias in 1964. However, his stint as dean was short because of his appointment as Commissioner for Justice, Lagos State. He nevertheless left his mark chiefly through the establishment of the JIC Taylor Lectures and inauguration of scholarships for excellence. The baton was handed to Michael Jagade in 1976. It was under his leadership that departments were created in the faculty. This singular feat helped in no small measure in the staff growth and development. It was also under him that the faculty recorded its first ever first-class graduate in 1977. After a 4-year purposive leadership tenure, Clifford Olawoye took over the mantle from Jagade. The crisis that rocks the university barely 7 months afterwards prematurely brought his deanship to an end. It is a salute to the comrade spirit among his peers that none of them stepped in to take his place. This is a demonstration of the oneness of the faculty. Each of the deans of the faculty, ever since inception, have left their indelible imprints, and the current dean will no doubt continue with the same zeal and commitment with which his predecessors served. Let's hear from some of the lecturers and alumni.
It was a great joy and delight to join the Faculty of Law, thanks to the good grace of Professor Kasumu, senior advocate, who hired me way back in 1973. So I was in the faculty from 73 to 2017. So you can do the arithmetic.
I joined the Faculty of Law, University of Lagos in September 1974.
I could say that as a lecturer in the Faculty of Law, I would verily agree with the current Vice Chancellor, who usually describes the Faculty of Law as one of the flagship faculties of the University of Lagos.
We had heard about some of the very great teachers here at the University of Lagos. We had used some of their books, even as students at IFE. And so I thought that it would be a very good opportunity to broaden my outlook by coming here.
I'm a professor of law for over 50 years. It can be like 53 or 4.
It's been a wonderful experience. Choice of University of Lagos to study law. Maybe they had 4 or 5 universities then. Even if they had 20 universities, the University of Lagos has no equal. We tower above every other university in terms of the study of law.
I was happy when Professor Ayo Agbede invited me to come and lecture in his department. He was the head of Department of Jurisprudence and International Law at that time. So for me, it was like fulfilling a dream.
I never knew I was going to be a teacher because I hated I hated teaching and I hated everything about teachers. I don't know why. I thought that
being a teacher is synonymous with poverty. That's why I never wanted. It was my professor of land law, who actually encouraged me in London, Professor Ryder, who said I should please join academics. So I told him that I'm not one for that kind of thing. And he said, you try, that once you start, you will love it. So that was how I came back to Nigeria with 2 little children. So I joined teaching as a lecturer too. And they said, oh, they were looking for someone to teach the law of tort, because Professor Konde, who was teaching tort, was tired of the subject. So I came in and they just foisted it on me.
I must tell you that it was pure chance. I never even thought that I was going to be a teacher, let alone being a teacher of law. As I indicated in my inaugural lecture, my brother was working in Lagos or in Nigeria as the director of International Labour Organization. So I stopped by on my way back from US to greet him, and I ran into his friend, Professor Damachi. They worked together in Geneva and they were close friends when he also came back. At that time, Professor Damachi was the dean of the Faculty of Business Administration. Now it is Management Studies. And when he visited my brother that day, we were talking and he got to understand that I graduated from UPenn. And he asked, look, why don't you come and teach business law? We need a teacher in business law in Faculty of Business Administration, now Faculty of Management Sciences. So I agreed. But when he took my application to the AMP, the Faculty of Law objected, and I told him that I was more suitable to teach in the Faculty of Law than to teach a single course in business administration. And that they would employ me, and then I would teach the course as a service course in the Faculty of Business Administration. That is how I started teaching here in the Faculty of Law. And the first lectures, in fact, the contact with my seniors was one of the things that attracted me the most, because everybody was anxious to see me settle down well. And I took a liking in what I taught first year, second year, and I decided to stay. That is how I stayed now for almost 40 years.
We were admitted into the faculty in 1989 as a student for a 3-year program as a law student, and then we finished in 1992. We obtained our LLB in 1992. I later came back in 1995-1996 session for my master's degree. Then I joined the faculty in 2003, and in 2007, from 2007 to 2012, I also did my PhD in the Faculty of Law.
I would say that I am a thoroughbred alumnus of this faculty. I was taught by the best in this faculty. So after my first degree, I made up my mind to do my second degree here. And in the process of doing my LLM degree here, I think I became a graduate assistant. And from there, I decided to do my PhD here upon being given an offer of employment. So I had my first degree, second degree, and PhD in this wonderful Faculty of Law, University of Lagos.
I was admitted in 1998 to 2003-04. We finished. Well, my set was a wonderful set. The set that shook the entire University of Lagos was the best set ever. Well, as far as I'm concerned, and that was the late VC Omotola, Professor Omotola, the late Vice Chancellor of the school. That was during his time that we came in, and a lot of things happened, but we came in was actually the largest class in the history of the Faculty of Law, University of Lagos, with wonderful people, brilliant, intelligent, and name it, you find it among the set.
I bagged a master's degree in the year 2008 from this prestigious faculty, the Faculty of Law, University of Lagos.
I thought it was the only thing I could do well. I mean, it's an interesting question because I still am, I think, quite reticent and reserved. Lawyers are generally seen as being very boisterous and talkative and so on. I wasn't as growing up. And so people always wondered when I said I wanted to study law. But I thought right back then, as a young man, that law was something that I related to. I loved watching courtroom dramas. I mean, it's cliche, but that's the truth. I enjoyed watching Perry Mason, The Defenders, movies like that on television, and I could relate to the whole process of the legal trial and the drama of it all, and the acting, you know. So I was drawn to it.
Growing up, I really wanted to study accountancy, but my daddy was an accountant, and he said he missed studying law just by little. He wanted to be a lawyer actually, and my daddy spoke to me and told me that he would love me to be a lawyer, and I agreed. And in the course of my studying law at the Faculty of Law, University of Lagos, I was just thanking him because I fell in love with law, and I saw that it was really and is really a very, very prestigious course.
Evolution of teaching law. Interestingly, when I joined the Faculty of Law, only full professors lectured. The others took tutorials. I did not see the inside of a lecture room till about 3 years or therefore. So you have a maturing process, and it's like a synergy, the senior mentoring the junior.
I remember particularly Professor Akinwuye Body, who was my teacher, and he was so brilliant and so smart, and I said to myself, maybe I could achieve this kind of success, and finally, by the grace of God.
When we were here as students, my lecturers, my professors then, Professor Adeogun, Professor Adeogun, Professor Adeyemi, Professor Obilade, and some of our professors that later, some of our lecturers that later became Professor Agomo, Professor Shikmiton, Professor Fogam, Professor Uzodike, Mowo, Oyewo, Professor Asenuwa. What they did for us at that time was that they went beyond the call of duty. They also impacted us personally. They cared about us. They cared about everything about us.
Well, you are brilliant. You are my best of friends. And when you are weak, I will say you are even a better friend for me, because I feel, how can somebody come here and left here not improving himself or herself. So I go for weak students to help them in every way I could. Why the brilliant students are just my friend because I like them. And I'm open for whatever they want of me, advice or everything, and I'm fond of them.
I was very fortunate to have the kind of lecturers that I had, because they were lecturers who followed up with my progress. We had lecturers then who would call you when they don't see you in class, would call you to find out from you whether or not you understood the things that you were learning. And they were very good lecturers who took us in the various courses of law while I was in university. I need to mention in particular Professor Adigun, who took us in equity in my part 2. He was particular about my progress, and I'll tell you why. It's an interesting story. Like I said earlier, I wasn't exactly the most studious of students, and I only became very particular about my work and how I was going to end up when I finished my part 2 exams. But my part 1 and all the way into part 2, I was just an ordinary student. I just wanted to leave university with maybe a 2-2, and I'd have been very happy even if I had gotten a 3rd class. That was the way I was until I got to part 2, when Professor Digun taught me in equity. Now, it so happened that we had a midterm test, or mid-year test in equity. I didn't read for it because I was very much a socialite in the University of Lagos. And I remember the grade that I got in that equity test. I got 18%. And of course, I wasn't very happy about it, but hey, it wasn't the main exam, so it didn't really matter that much. But by the time I started reading for my exams, I decided to put in my best into my work. And I studied equity particularly hard. Now, I remember Adigun coming to me during the equity exam. And he came and he said, Adekbatun. I said, yes, this is what everybody was quiet, everybody was, working, doing his paper. Adekbatun. He said, I hope this is not 18% work in the whole class. I will never forget that. And I told him, no, sir, you will see this one, sir. It so happened that I got an A in equity at the end of the day. And then he called me and he just told me that you can see what you can do when you put in your effort. He congratulated me. But I've never forgotten that statement. I hope this is not 18% work. It's always there.
There has been some changes, or perhaps maybe modifications to how laws are now taught. And just as it applies to any other profession in the faculty here. So what we find these days now is that, one, there has been an infusion of ICT. There is now an infusion of what I would call the PowerPoint presentation, into the teaching of law, whereby, you can share with students the high points of what you want them to know, and as a result, you relieve them of having to take notes in the classes, and then leave them with the materials that they would need. But that will also require that they go back to the library to study, because the PowerPoint presentation is actually a summary that, it's quite sketchy, but it highlights the key points that students need to know. The working there is that they are expected to return to the library, check up the cases, read the materials, the secondary sources, even go over the primary sources so that they can be sure, and from there they can make their notes appropriately. That is one level. Another level is that we are in another age now where in further infusion of ICT in learning, and of course in the COVID world era, in the COVID world, you now find that it is not all the time safe for society to have aggregation of students in the classroom. So we now have, means by which you can communicate with people in diverse locations. So the Zoom method is there, and there are so many other platforms through which you can communicate with people in diverse locations and in remote locations as well. So, and particularly last year, most of our lectures were held online. Even examinations were conducted online. Monitoring and supervision of examination were done online through proctoring. And then we were able to at least achieve what we wanted to achieve without really holding students back or holding them down until the COVID was over. This COVID may not go, as you know, so quickly. So we are going to continue to adapt. We are going to continue to improve on our facilities and ensure that at the end of the day, at least we can combine technology, with the traditional method of teaching. And of course, then we can add value to our students.
I will say that the greatest the greatest challenge that we face is the challenge of funding. We are so poorly funded that we're not able to do the things that we need to do. For a faculty such as our faculty, we also have to deal with aging infrastructure. Our faculty building has been standing since, I think, the 70s, or maybe since the 70s, and you can imagine what it will require to maintain that structure, but unfortunately, we're poorly funded.
First of all, when I became the dean, as he placed the law, the first female to become the dean of the faculty, one thing that was so glaring was absence of results, no records, absence of student records in the faculty. And my predecessor, Professor Adeyemi, had engaged someone who was working on it and was making good progress. I remember that he and I were in Chicago on official assignment. And while we were there, we got a phone call. Crashed. So by the time I came in with Daya Mokoya as my sub-dean, no record, absolutely, what he was doing, crashed. So what we did was, we said, we gave ourselves a time and said, within 3 months, we must have records. Assiduously, we engaged a consultant who incidentally was from Department of Computer Science. I think it was a PhD, doctoral candidate. And so maybe he was using us as a guinea pig or whatever. But we produced it. And one thing it did was to, not just that we had record built up. What it did was also to be able to produce individual statement of results. And when we came, we find that many students had no business being in the faculty because their record showed they should have withdrawn. But because there was no record, so it continued to be incomplete. It tied them there with no opportunity to go and do something else, or if they had to appeal or whatever, that. So for those things, I remember once, a colleague came from English, a professor, to check on the NISI's result. And that was a very fast, I asked, Prof, thank you. We can give you individual results. The girl should have been withdrawn 2 or 3 years before. Yes, she was collecting money. She was doing everything, that she was still a student. There were 2 of them, but they were not. So that is one major milestone. And again, the Faculty of Law was the first to have internet, what they call intranet. It was during my tenure that we had that. In fact, other faculty were taking the queue to come and learn, because we also had a consultant who was able to give us that we worked with. And discipline, issue of student discipline was an issue. Dress code was an issue. So that was one area, like I said, it was a running battle. It was interesting. A committee had already been set up by my predecessor, that Professor Adeyemi, but it was not concluded. So that movement had to conclude. With the students, we are also part of that committee. And we agreed on the black and white and all that. But of course, the black and white means the students use as a camouflage. So long as it's white, so long as it's black. you can do anything. Then Fridays, of course, was Mufti Day. I remember one day, it wasn't a Friday, it was a Thursday. I was looking for where I was to lecture. And I came into the lecture theater and students started running. They were taking the other way. A lecturer was there. And as soon as they saw me, I was wondering what was happening. And I realized, well, those people did not wear regulation dress. So I now entered the classroom, come and see the stampede. They were running. And I started going from seat to seat. And there was one girl at the back, was there, jeans, beautiful. When you talk of decency, it was written all over her, but it was not regulation. I said, go and wait for me in the dean's office. Whereas I went down, the others were running to Senate building. Everybody that day was like, whatever. But eventually I went to the office. I said, give me your parents' number. Give me the number of your parents. I want to call them right now. And she said, I'll give you my mom's number. He said, our dad left us in the US with another woman, but my mom brought us up well. Said she'll be disappointed. My brother is a medical student and I'm reading law. He said, this is the first day, ma, that I'm wearing mufti. My friends had been urging me, what is all this? And I said, where are your friends? He said, they ran out. And she was too ashamed. So she stood there, she was there hoping I would not get to that, and she swore to herself, it will never happen again. So when that happened, well, I didn't call her mom. I got up, I hugged her, and I said, there is hope. She said, I promise you, I will make you proud. You will never have any reason. So it's a question of, one, you have maintained that discipline, but with a human face, you let people know that even though I'm telling you this and you don't like it, like one of the students, when they left, they said, I should come and talk to them. I said, well, the wicked woman should come and talk to you. He said, don't mind them, ma. You tell us the truth. It's those who don't want to listen. We know you've always told us the truth. And that's the thing that happens, that discipline is very important. You can't compromise it.
Yes, because of this lack of space and the challenge we face, having to borrow classrooms from the institute and so on, and the fact that our existing infrastructure was not adequate. Well, I played a fast one, must confess. It's not difficult to confess now in public. Play the first one to get part of the portion earmarked for business administration. So we had to share that plot. We applied to the university, complaining to them about inadequacies of our building and so on, so forth. And then we were lucky that the Vice Chancellor was a former dean. So we were lucky to get that portion, and then we told them the type of design we wanted, and they were able to put up the structure, and that relieved us a lot.
Number one, I think governments just got to recognize that students cannot pay exactly the same amount of the approved fees, not necessarily tuition, but some of those things that are approved. They can't continue to pay the same thing for 15, 20 years in a context that we know that inflation is biting, and I think that we need to be adequately funded to be able to provide qualitative education. I think that I know that there are indigent students, and I think that my students would attest that I have gone out of my way to raise funds for a number of indigent students. So I do recognize that any hike in anything that has to be paid would affect some students. But I think that there are enough students who can well afford to pay more than they're paying now. And if they were allowed to pay that, then possibly the university will be able to, the money that comes in there will enable us to put in place some of the things, the resources that we need to deliver qualitative education, especially in the area of clinicals. If we talk about clinicals would have cost. And if clinicals would have costs, then we must be ready to pay for those. And we also need to look at expanding facilities. My faculty, this our great faculty, has the capacity to take on the number of students that it currently has. But what we just don't have is the infrastructure to support that. We have the lecturers, we have the resources, especially in these days that most of our resources are e-based, which means that, like in the past when only one student could read a book. Now, if that book is in electronic form, or maybe the article is in a journal that's in electronic form, then 100 students can be reading that same article simultaneously. So we actually have the capacity to deliver and meet the aspirations of Nigerians, but we do need to be, we need infrastructural development, and we are especially to support the work that we do.
Okay, also as an administrator, what would you say has been the value that has been imbibed in undergraduates of the Faculty of Law?
I'm able to say that the Faculty of Law equips its students, and even more so, since we embraced clinical legal education, and which we largely deliver through the co-curricular activities that we keenly support our students to engage in. I would say that we equip our students with the opportunity to experience law practically. I believe that the rigor that our students go through enable them to develop critical and analytical skills. And I think that we also assist them in terms of developing their leadership capacity and in developing their personal skills, basically, the personal skills.
I think it's time for us to have a rethink about this issue of free education. Back in the day when the universities were being funded almost exclusively by government, the amount that was being given then, the currency, the value of the currency was quite high then. And so the amount was quite adequate to take care of the needs. And don't forget also that the population, student population, is not what it used to be at that time. So now, decades later, you find that the amount being given has either remained static or even been cut down. The student population has increased drastically, and the inflation is there, and so on and so forth. So something has to give. We have to have a rethink about what to do, to ensure that we maintain and even enhance or improve the quality of education. The Yorubas have a saying, I'm a Yoruba person, there's a saying that if you want to eat food or soup, the preparation of a good pot of soup costs money. So there's a difference between the soup that is made with just a little bit of change and the one you sit down, prepare well. So we want our students to be well cooked, to be well prepared, you know, for service out there, and that requires proper funding.
Tertiary education is a constitutional right. You have the right to primary education, secondary education subject to performance, intellectual ability, and then of course university education is based on capacity to profit from it. So the time has come for some level of cost sharing. There was a time when the University of Lagos used to charge 90 naira per bed space. That no longer applies. And the students used to sell their bed spaces to those who are not allocated at humongous sums. They paid 90 naira and asked those who they sublease the bed space to pay thousands. I remember when I was living on campus, people came asking for our boys' quarters. They were offering humongous sums, and we told them, sorry, we don't sublet the university premises. I know lecturers on campus that sublet their boys' quarters for large fees, and then near the campus there are all manner of hostels which are let out to students for fees that I don't know what the fees are like now. So, and I'm talking of just accommodation. What of library facilities?
For me as an individual, I've always believed that the concept of free education at the tertiary level, that it is an illusion. And this is manifest so far. The funding of tertiary education is abysmal, so to say. You see, year in, year out, the number of students that are qualified and therefore form the bulk of the intake of the universities keep increasing. But the infrastructures are not increasing. Government funding of education is poor. Other than paying salaries, in terms of capital development, curriculum development, and all of that, the funding is abysmal, it's terrible. For me, that is because we keep practicing this illusion that tertiary education should be free and government should sponsor it. But government doesn't have the wherewithal to function it, to fund it adequately. So for me, I would prescribe a regime where, you know, funding is distributed or is shared between students, their sponsors, and the federal government. To say that education is free and the government is incapable of funding it adequately simply means that the system suffers, quality of education suffers.
Well, it's not only education, anything that is free is bound to have problems. Bound to have problems because it will be overcrowded. And resources will never be enough. If you look at what this faculty alone needs to get to the standard that our alumni will want her to get to, you will find that even the budget for the entire university might not be able to cope with this faculty alone. Okay, but here we are in Nigeria. We are just gradually getting to understand that you do not say that because you have a government, everything has to be free. Okay, I describe Nigerians as the typical Oniya or maybe people. An Oniya or maybe person is a person who even at adult age believes that he has a mother. He doesn't have to work to be able to feed himself.
association always help the growth of the alma mater. There's no doubt about that.
In fact, there's hardly any country I visit that I won't run into a former Unilag student.
Now, I think the role of alumni, I think, is to promote the institution. I mean, you've benefited from the institution. I mean, I can say for sure that my Unilag degree was the platform on which I built a career. And I think we ought to remember that and try and give back to the institution to build its reputation and to support those who are coming behind us.
If you want a faculty to develop, or a university to develop, the charge is on the alumni. The alumni own the university, and they own the faculty, and they make or break the faculty. As I said, when there was thought about changing the name of the university to Abiola University, the faculty alumni rose as one to resist. And people like Ndoma Egba, who was leader of the Senate, Awole Olanipekun, and 6 sons went to court to challenge it. And eventually, it was the alumni that killed that idea. Jonathan could not tamper with that university.
The lecturers that we had were fantastic. University of Lagos has always been the place to be to study law, and I still think it remains the same today. And this is what, as an alumni association, we want to ensure that in perpetuity, this will remain the case. It will be the best place to study law in Nigeria.
The year the set of 1980 to 1983, at the date I got to Lagos and the day they left Unilag, they have been taking me along with some 2 or 3 other lecturers to everywhere. They have their annual reunion. They took us to America. They took us to every part of Nigeria. And at present, they are asking them to foot the bill in building the tower for Unilag Faculty of Law. And I can tell you, in this particular group, wow, the judges among them, the SAN among them, and the few that have gone to something, you just mention, and I think they are the best of the universe has produced. Ask the Vice Chancellor or anybody, 1980 to 1983.
The role of alumni association in any university cannot be overemphasized, being that they are bridge builder between the university and the past students. And on that note, they are like driving force towards executing the developmental agenda of any university. And so, I would say they are bridge builder.
Well, I'll say this, like my set, we try to make it a point of duty that every year, at least we want to sponsor a student to law school. These are the students that, well, they are good, they are brilliant, they're intelligent, but they are less privileged, and probably they cannot, they may not be able to afford the school fees for law school. So we make it a point of duty to sponsor at least a student. We can do more, and alumni there are a lot of needs in the faculty. They can reach out to the faculty to even know the needs of the faculty. They don't need to wait for the faculty to reach out to them that we need this. They know that the government cannot really fill the bills. They can't pay. They can bring the best out of the faculty. So the people that can assist is still the alumni. So by the time we come back, we find out what the faculty needs, and we can be of support to the faculty. We can, for students that we may need to help, for things that they don't, okay, look at it. I don't know the number of libraries the Faculty of Law has, and I don't know how equipped is the library, the law library is. So these are things that alumni can assist, and they can bring in some of those things. They can even change the face of the faculty. Like, I understand that even right now they don't have enough offices for lecturers. Lecturers have to share offices. I think alumni can come to say, okay, how can we be of help? How can we move this faculty beyond where it is?
This reunion that is tagged the Great Homecoming is going to play a very big role in the Faculty of Law, in the lives of our students, in the lives of those who are coming, because we're expecting the alumni, they are coming back. You know, like, a lot had actually left and they never really came back to the school, but you know, they come back, they relive the old time, they acquaint with their classmates, and they also interact with the new generation, which will make a great impact in the lives of the students. And we're also expecting that, you know, they will also give back in kind, in cash, to the university.
Of course, we're everywhere abroad as well, you know, making our rank in the judiciary abroad, in other sectors, even in governance abroad. I think the Attorney General of Alberta State in Canada is an alumnus of the Faculty of Law. And of course, you know that the Speaker of the House of Representatives of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is an alumnus. You do know that the Vice President of Nigeria is an alumnus. I mean, so I think that by all standards, we are definitely an institution to be reckoned with.
Even as we speak, I do not see any dean that do not or has not over the years engaged the Alumni Association for some support, one form of support or the other. So they are development partners indeed. They are development partners. But what I think is that given the value that they add to development, I think it is imperative that we systematize their intervention, we increase and deepen the value, the depth of our communications with our alumni, so that at least they recognize that it's not just about asking them for funds, you know, in our programs, but actually making them partners at the relevant stages of legal education.
The alumni are very great stakeholders in the functioning and achievement of the university.
University faculty has done a lot for me and a lot for many of my colleagues. So, having appreciated that and acknowledged that, I believe and I entertain no doubt that to whom much is given, much is desired. If we have taken so much from that university, then it's time for us to give back. And that's why I chair the Alumni Relations Committee. And our objective is to bring back as many of alumni that are leaving. Let them come back to university, come back to their faculty, see what the faculty is like, throw banters, some bonding among themselves. It will also afford them the opportunity to interact with our students, see where they are, what are their needs, particularly in the area of placement for internship. If you look at it very well, Oxford, Cambridge, and LSE, UCL, you find out that they also have similar arrangements. And the students are the beneficiaries. Most law firms that are successful would pick their own alumni first for employment before picking any other person. If you look at these chambers, for example, 90% of the lawyers are from University of Lagos. And it's for a reason. I would rather take my own product first before considering other products.